Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had an encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Tonight's guest is Cornell Murray. Cornell, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vic. Glad to be here.
Oh, it's great having you here. Cornell, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
All right, so my name is Cornell. I grew up in D.C., Washington, D.C. I've lived there all my life, and when I was 19, I moved out to Maryland. I am a bartender, so life is pretty good. I have a pretty fun lifestyle. And I'm definitely into fitness, so I would definitely like to keep it myself to a pretty high strength level. So, pretty confident guy in most cases.
Considering the fact that you've lived in the D.C. area your whole life, I'm sure a lot of people at home are wondering how in the world could you have had a Dogman encounter, but we're going to get into that. You've had a big interest in werewolves for a long time now. Please tell us about that.
My interest in Dogmans and werewolves has come from childhood movies, basically watching a lot of horror movies with werewolves. My dad used to love watching those things, so for me at a young age, it was scary. I just never got over it. I kind of always assumed that things like that existed. I've always had that optimism, just so what if? And if it's possible, where could it possibly be? And what are my chances into coming in contact with something like that? Like, will that happen in my lifetime? I have a long way to go, so there's plenty of experiences that are unexpected and unforetold, so what am I likely to run into? So, that being a question of curiosity, the one thing I feared would be a werewolf. Like, I hate stray dogs because you can never tell what their intentions are. So, that being the case, you're not really sure how things could turn once you come into contact with it. So, I find that the possibility of a werewolf is at an extreme level of that. And for something with a level of intelligence and ferocity coming into contact with it, you don't know whether to expect for it to see you and pass you by or to expect what you see in the movie. So, how realistic is this thing? In ways you want to ask yourself, like, all right, well, if it's real, how do I categorize this? Do I think of it as maybe an animal with human-like intelligence, or do I just assume that it's an animal and it's looking for something to eat? That can make your encounter pretty interesting for yourself, just thinking about it, but to actually experience it, it's a level that you just never forget.
How could you forget something like that? Yeah, like you, I've always been more impressed by werewolves in movies than any other kind of movie monster. The other movie monsters are pretty scary, but nothing like a werewolf, so I can definitely understand. Your experiences took place in the Silver Spring, Maryland area. What's that area like?
The area is really nice, actually. It's really nice. It's a beautiful area. I was in the city part. The area's pretty big. There's a lot of attractions. There's the mall, there's movie theaters. There's colleges nearby, and lots of metro, so it's a pretty nice populated area.
Yeah, there must be a lot of people in that area. How did you find out about Dogman Encounters?
It was luck, actually. I've always wanted some kind of information on this subject from the day it happened. Actually, before it even happened, before I even moved there, I did a lot of research on werewolves and the possibility of them. And if there was ever any real sightings or encounters, there's plenty of sightings of the Mothman and Bigfoot and so forth. And a few other strange things as well. You can find it on the internet. But werewolves has always been that one question. Has there been anyone? And there's sightings dating back to like the early 1800s or so. But anything recent, I was most curious about. I don't know. I had a really strange curiosity about this. And right before I moved to Silver Spring, I've done a lot of research on this. Maybe like a month before I even knew that I had a buddy that wanted to move out there. So before I even knew, it was like instinct. I just wanted to learn more about it, just in case. It felt like I was preparing for something. So moving out there was pretty interesting. But overall, how I found out about the show, there was a video post on YouTube about werewolves in Brazil. It was on a camera somehow. A traffic camera caught one walking down the street. And so professionals said that it had to be real. It wasn't likely that it was a hoax based on the build, the shadows, and everything that they did to find out whether photos photoshopped and so forth. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, well, finally here's some proof. It's been so long. It's been about 11 years, I want to say, since that has happened. So down below in the recommended videos section, there's Dogman Encounters. And I just thought, what are the chances that maybe Dogman is another reference for werewolf? So I was like, all right, the video is about 30 minutes long or 60 minutes, I don't remember, but it had a decent amount of views. I looked into it, I saved it into my favorites list, and I decided to check it out later. So when I had done so, I was blown away. I was like, come on. For the longest, I wanted to know so much more about it, and were there ever any other experiences? So looking through the YouTube channel, I saw that there was plenty of videos. So I went through maybe 20 within a week. At least 20 minimum. I went through as many as possible. I was fascinated. I was actually really excited to see and hear about other people's encounters and experiences. So that was a pretty good experience for me to even found the channel.
Considering your own experiences, your jaw had to drop when you heard that there had been so many other people who had had experiences just like yours. It
definitely did. That was an incredible experience. I just thought to myself, there was no way I was the only person. That is not possible, especially in the neighborhood I lived in. There was a lot of houses, a lot of people lived there. So my thought to myself was, maybe other people know about it, but they're keeping it quiet. And no one's talking about it, which is really strange. So to find out the channel and hear more experiences, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people that speak on the show are really scared and nervous. They think back on it or maybe taking the trash out. Those things still bother them a lot. For the most part myself, I've gotten over the fear to an extent. The reason why I say that is because now I'm aware that it exists. So I definitely keep an eye out. And I make sure that whenever I do anything, I'm somewhere where I can be seen or there's some kind of street lights. I want to make sure my area is safe. And I definitely take a lot of precautions during certain times of the night, just in case. It's not worth it to assume that an area is safe because there's no one outside. Oh, well, what the heck, I'm going to walk to the store. I think those are the best chances for you to have an encounter because of the fact that that thought that led you out there alone is something that these things prey upon. So I think they have a tendency to use human curiosity against itself.
Yeah, they probably do, and those are good precautions to take, especially considering the fact you've had 2 encounters with them.
That is correct. The first encounter was the scariest. The second encounter wasn't as much, just because of the size of it, but I think mostly because of the size. And it didn't cause as much ruckus as the first one did.
Given the nature of those 2 encounters, I can understand why that first one would have shaken you up a lot more than the second one. Speaking of which, let's get into that first encounter now. Please give us every last detail that comes to mind.
I was working one night from about 4 p.m. to about 10, I think. Usually it takes me about an hour to get home. So I've gotten home. The day was good. The night was good. My girlfriend and I used to always stay up late till about maybe 1 in the morning, watching cartoons actually. So there was a particular show we used to watch at 11:30, and if I ever got home too late, she'll record it and we'll watch it together and she'll just wait. But this particular night I got home at a decent time and we did watch it together. So at maybe 1:30, we fall asleep, and I'm pretty tired. I've been at work all day. I'm dead tired, so I'm out cold. About 6 a.m., definitely 6 a.m., it was the strangest thing. I completely wake up from a deep sleep, a very deep sleep. I completely wake up, and my mind is completely alert. I felt so conscious of everything happening around me. It was strange. It was a unique feeling. It was a feeling when you step out into the street and a car nearly hits you because they're passing a red light when they shouldn't. You're in a heightened state of awareness. So for me, that's what it was. But I thought that was extremely strange because I'm in bed and nothing happened. There was no sound whatsoever. My girlfriend was asleep. And here I am, wide awake, 6 in the morning. And I was tired. At least I was tired. And I thought, like, this is really weird. I did a complete sit-up just to look around. So I lay back now. But at this point, I'm feeling extremely paranoid just because of the fact that I was that curious to wake up out of my sleep to look around just to check things out. That was a red flag for me. So I lay down, I closed my eyes, and I tried to fall back to sleep. The moment I tried, it just didn't make any sense. My mind was way too awake. So I decided to listen. Just keep my ear open. Just listen. See if there would be anything that I should be listening for that maybe would have slipped my attention if I wasn't paying attention. No need for that. A few seconds later, I hear a loud crashing into my fence in my backyard. There's a long fence that divides my backyard from my neighbor's backyard. It sounded like a car just drove through the fence. But then I could hear feet running, like galloping, like whatever it was on four legs, but it sounded like a horse. And I'm thinking, like, what the heck was that? And I'm laying in bed. At this point, I'm not sure what to expect. It's strange enough that I woke up from a deep sleep completely awake and then this happens. So whatever this must be, it can't be good. I'm usually pretty quick on things. Whenever something bad is about to happen, I usually get a notion to whatever it may be. So I'm used to it. I've always had that about me my entire life. So whenever that happens, I take precaution and I become more aware. But when this happened, I couldn't sense anything bad. I just knew that I was awake. The awareness part was there, but the feeling of anything bad was not. But the moment something crashed into my gate, I knew this wasn't going to be good. So it walked around to the backyard quietly. It wasn't making any noise at first except for like a few sniffs. You can hear like a few grass leaves move. And then you start hearing deep breathing. The chest of this thing had to be huge. Because the lungs, you can hear the lungs breathing. A lot of the things about this thing, the sounds it made as far as the amount of weight it could have possibly had when it ran, you can hear the footsteps, vibrations through the ground. It was like hearing a horse run through a race or something, or through the field. That's what it sounded like. But at that point when I heard that, it had to be standing on 2 feet because the weight sounded much heavier than it did when it was on 4. So I'm guessing when it was on 4s, it can move quietly if it wanted to. But on 2 feet, you can definitely hear the weight. I was just thinking, like, why would something so big be in my backyard right now? But at the same time, I was completely covered in fear. My body just didn't want to move. I lay as still as possible because I did not want to get this thing's attention, not even for a second. Because at first I felt like it was just snooping around, just looking around, whatever it could have been. God knows what it was looking for, but it was just snooping around. And then I heard sniff more and it started sneezing. It sounded like how a horse would when it breathes out and then like flares its nostrils. And that's what this thing was doing. And then it would get down on floors. You could hear it gallop really fast back into the fence. Now the backyard isn't that wide across, about maybe 30 to 40 feet across. And where my window is, from the gate, it's about maybe 15 feet. So when it runs towards the window and then back, it hits full speed at a rate, which is crazy because it's not taking that many steps. But when it hits the fence, it sounds like it's tearing a hole straight through it. Instead of going over it, which obviously it probably could have, it could have jumped over. But for some reason, it sounded like it was running straight through the fence. Not even over it, just straight through. So I thought by the morning the fence would have been completely demolished and destroyed. Well, we had mangled up. The next day I did check. Well, not the next day, but that morning I did check. The fence was fine. But when this was happening, there was no way I would think that. There was no way. Once it got over to the neighbor's side, it would run around, and then it'd come right back full speed into the gate. That was probably the most scariest part because at this point, I still haven't had an idea to what this could have been. All I know is something's running back and forth. It's huge, and it can go on 2 feet and 4 feet whenever it wants to. And I just thought, like, this can't be a prank. This can't be. I felt a fear at a level which was unreal. And where I grew up in D.C., back when I was younger, bad things happened all the time. People got shot, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I witnessed a lot of it. So that was scary when I was really, really young, maybe about 5 or 6. But as I got maybe 7, 8, it was normal. That fear subsided completely. Going through bad neighborhoods doesn't bother me. But when that happened, there was nothing like it. It was a strange fear that, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like any wrong move you make, you're done. That's it. So at some point, it's back in my backyard. At this point, it doesn't leave. It stays and it keeps sniffing around. It sounds like it's sniffing closer to the window, which was weird. But it didn't feel like it was sniffing directly at the window, just in the area of it. and there's an AC in the window, and the window comes down over top of it. There's only one window in my bedroom, and it's that one. And that particular window is right above where my head sleeps at. Because I thought it'd be cool to sleep next to the AC so I can get nice cold sleep. The blanket's nice and snuggy, but I guess that night wasn't the night for it. Because that was the most unsafest part of the bed. I felt as if I would have moved for a second or even got up to look out the window. I was at arm's reach. So, first thought came to mind, a werewolf. Because of the fact that if it would have ever came across me in my lifetime, I'm assuming that this is what it would feel like. This was what it would sound like. The thing was growling in the backyard. It was crazy. The growling part, it felt like it was just getting angry for, like, no reason. Like, I guess whatever it was looking for, it couldn't find it, so it got angry. So it slowly growled a little more. Never made any loud noises, just mostly low growls, then some deep growls. So I've also noticed that whenever it did its growls, it was lower to the ground, not as high up. And thinking back on it now, my neighbor's window is really low to the ground. It's directly below mine. So maybe it could have been looking through their window as well. So it could have had a lot of interest in that back part of the apartment. Because that part of the apartment is an attachment to our bigger house. And that's directly in the back. So in order to get there, you walk to the front of the house, and you have to walk all the way around to the back part of the house. For me to go upstairs, there's a stairs behind the house, basically. Further behind the backyards, lots of tall trees. It was a pretty woody area. A lot of people had trees in their backyards, and beyond that, there was which divides the neighborhoods, which was really huge trees and thick brush. There were parks. The parks had, they was just surrounded by trees and like lots and lots of trees. You can pretty much go hiking back there. So I just thought that whatever it was, it definitely came from some part over there. And it frequents through the neighborhoods at nighttime or maybe early mornings. And it has I feel like it has certain routes as well. So just that night, we took a stop in my backyard and decided to, I guess, take a look through the windows. I guess we couldn't see through my window as well, being that the AC was above my head. So unless it was tall enough, it could have looked over that and looked down. But I think that would have been pretty tough even for it. But I definitely think that it was looking into my neighbor's windows. So at some point, the noise consists, and then it continues running through the gate. And then at some point, my neighbors below me, they turn the light on. I can tell because when the light cuts on, the backyard illuminates just a little bit. So I can see it in my bedroom. But not enough. Just, I know the difference because I'm used to it. So when I see it, I understand that what's happening. So the moment I saw that, and I can hear them down below me, they're yelling, El Diablo, El Diablo. I immediately felt confidence to get up, look out the window. All right, well, it's not just me anymore who's seeing this or hearing this. So I better get a good look now, too, while I got a check. This way, if it decides to attack anyone, it has options. And hopefully, I'm not the first option. So I took a look, and by the time I took a look maybe about 2 seconds after the light cut on, maybe 3 seconds, and I got up immediately. I took a look, and it wasn't back there. But I can see something walking over from a different neighbor's yard. Like, this backyard is not that far away. It's 3 houses. I'm in the middle. So on the left-hand side is another backyard. And there's a tall brown fence which goes across to divide our backyards. And that fence is about maybe 7, 8 feet tall. If I stand next to it, because I'm about 6'3". So when I stood next to that, it's way taller than I am. But this thing, when it walked away, you can see his rear shoulders. Nothing but the back, but it's walking away and it has massive shoulders. And his body is developed as if it lifts weights or does gymnastics. This thing is huge and massive. Not lean, but like bulky and full of definition. So as it walks away, it has a slow walk as if it has pride in what it does, which is a massive amount of confidence. Like nothing can bother it. And his head was narrow, but it had long ears pointing on the top of his head. And then right as it's walking away, like less than 3 or 4 feet, it turns his head to the right and looks over his shoulder as if he knew I was looking, just to let me know, like, I know you're watching. You're not slick. I knew you were there. But I'm walking away now because I'm finished. Or I've had my fun, and it's leaving. It didn't have like a territorial attitude when it looked around as if it wanted to come back and attack now. It was just like, I can do this whenever I want to. and I'm going to walk away because this is my neighborhood too. And it slowly walked away, and it had like a strut to it, as if it was in a runway. I just thought that was interesting, but it was pretty bad. And I thought, holy, that was a werewolf. When it turned its head around, it had a long snout. And from that point, I knew, like, these things actually exist. But what are the chances? I've been in D.C. my entire life. Now I move out here. Only a couple months living out here, I see this. These things are real. So from that moment on, I thought about it a lot. And this is while I'm in bed after it left. I thought about it, just like, what do I do now? Because my girlfriend has to go to school at like 7 a.m. Well, she leaves out at 7 to go to school. And I have to walk her to the station. We take the train together, and then I go back home and I get ready for work. But I thought, like, I don't know if she's going to school today. I think today we're going to play hooky because I'm not going outside at 7 a.m. This is what I'm telling myself. 7 a.m. hits. She's up. She's ready to go. And she's getting ready. And I'm thinking, like, now how do I get her to skip school today? What should I make up? I couldn't think of a single thing because I had no explanation. If I had to tell her the truth, I knew she wouldn't believe me. So I didn't want to show any fear without any reason for having it. At least for a reason that she would understand anyways. So that being the case, I just toughed it up and went outside and walked to the bus stop. At that time, when we went out to go to the bus stop, the sky was not light blue. It was in the transition from night to morning. So it was really bright, but things were still fresh from what just happened. Because when she left, it was about 40 minutes after. I felt like if it's walking around out there like that, then it could still get out there. When she came home from school, I let her know what happened. But before that, once I came back to the house, what I did was I went to the backyard immediately. I looked for footprints, couldn't find anything. The fence was perfectly fine, which was strange. And then that's when I checked the height of the brown fence. So the fence itself is at a higher level than my backyard. I guess that house next to me sits up higher. So there's a stone ridge which goes across like a wall, a low wall. It's about 4 feet. And above that, that's where the brown fence starts from the ground up. So I want to say that in total, with the fence being about 7 feet, that's about 11 feet up. So this thing had to be at least anywhere from like 11 feet or 12. So it was definitely pretty tall. Well, maybe taller, I'm not really sure, because of the fact that the shoulders did sit above the fence. So I looked around, and then I thought, there's no proof. There's no way I'll have any proof about this. But now I have to consider when I come home at night, how safe am I now? Because I just saw this. There's no taking that back. So what I did was, that particular day I went to work, I told my dad about it, and he worked with me at the hotel. He worked overnight, so when he comes to work, I'm usually about to leave, but I had a few brief moments to let him know what happened. I had to tell somebody. I had to. First of all, I was scared as shit. I was also debating whether or not I should move back home to my parents' house. I was like, I don't think the Coleman Park is for me. It's definitely not. It can't be. This is not what I'm prepared for. My vision of moving out did not include werewolves. That's supposed to be in the movies. So I told him about it, and I told him all the details, and he just brushed it off like it didn't happen. I was like, oh man, that could have been some crazy person, or could have been a dog or something. You sure it wasn't this? I'm like, come on, man. We've seen the movies when I was growing up, and now I have an experience that pretty much describes what one of these things look like in real life. You don't want to believe it. So he didn't take it too seriously, but it's cool. I told quite a few friends about it over the years. I had a best friend at the time. I told him, he believed it. Whenever he came over at night, he would always let me know to come outside and meet him just in case. So that was pretty cool to have someone to share it with. But over the years, I just kept looking it up online. Like every once in a while, I'll get curious. This is before I heard about Dogman show, but I'll get curious and I'll look it up just to see if anyone has made a site about this sightings in the area, or maybe the police have reportings or some kind of information about it. There was nothing, There was nothing. We did have a lot of signs on, the power line post. So there's pictures of missing dogs on there all the time. So whenever I drive through there or taking a bus, I notice it. But I just assume that because a lot of people have family dogs, they often run off or the dog might have had too much freedom and just didn't have to come back yet, or I don't know. I never thought it was related to Dogman. But as years transpired and continued to go on, I came across the Dogman channel, and then listening to a lot of the stories, a lot of the things that I experienced made sense. So these things definitely have some sort of curiosity with just playing without emotions in a sense, primarily fear, because I guess they enjoy it. They enjoy the fact that you're intelligent enough to understand that you don't know what you're looking at. So whatever I do at this moment, it's going to scare you. And I think it enjoys scaring people. It's like, I don't know, I guess it's like it likes to toy with us. It has a large level of power, and it enjoys to play with it. So the reason I say that is because I noticed that when I lived there, on some nights, I can hear the trash cans just being like brutally beat up or slammed around. And I just thought that was pretty silly. Like, who goes out to the trash late at night just to beat up their own trash cans? So I kind of figured maybe some teenagers. But it would be like extremely hard, like someone's just kicking the shit out of them. And the first time it happened, I was just irritated and annoyed. Like, come on, dude, just go home. Like, why are you doing this for like 5-6 minutes straight? And it just keeps going on and going. So I thought, all right, well, whoever lives in the house should probably come outside and say something. Never happened. Like, the person never came out. I never thought why they didn't do it. I just assumed maybe they weren't home or asleep and just didn't care. And then the sound would stop. But it would happen pretty frequently. And when it became frequent, I just thought, well, who makes nightly routes to hit the same trash cans every time? Like, these were metal trash cans, so they made a lot of noise. But it was only on one side. It was in the neighbor's house where the thing crossed over that had the brown fence. It was always in their yard. So the people who lived there, I feel bad for them, thinking back on this, knowing what I know now, because clearly they knew about it. And I guess they just had to deal with it. That's far beyond what I dealt with. Mine was just a few things here and there, more so sounds, and then that one time I got to see it. But for these people, I'm quite sure if they ever looked out their back window, they saw it pretty often. If it's hitting the trash cans, if it's hitting your trash cans for about 5 to 6 minutes straight, there's no way you do not have any curiosity to who is doing that. Thinking about it, I don't know why they wouldn't call the police. Well, maybe they have. I don't know. I thought about asking them a few times. I thought about asking my landlord quite a bit. But each time I saw him and I wanted to ask, I thought maybe he'll think I'm crazy. But it's been years since this has taken place, and I put a lot of thought into it. I think about it quite a lot, just because it doesn't make any sense in a lot of ways. It's unexplainable for something to do what it did in an area where people are there all the time. There's a college nearby, so there's no way I was the only person. I was just curious to why no one ever spoke about it, or, no, I guess I can't be that curious about why people don't speak about it because I haven't either. So maybe everyone assumes that they're the only one. That could be the case. Or it's just, I don't know, maybe I should have spoke more to the neighbors about it just to get a feel for what they even think of the possibility of what I thought I saw. I didn't want to look at it that way. But I guess I lacked the confidence in those cases.
It is hard to understand how something like that could be in an area that's so heavily populated, but it's not like that's an unprecedented incident. They've been seen within the city limits of Dallas, within the city limits of Cincinnati, Chicago, and some other major metropolitan areas like Columbus, Ohio, so it's not like that's the first time that's happened before. Did you ever talk with the people downstairs to see if they had seen it too?
You know, I never did that. I never did it. I mean, I spoke to them quite a bit. I don't think they spoke very much English either, though. But they mostly spoke Espanol. So I would speak to them in passing. I would say a few words in Spanish to say hi, but I never actually had conversations with them. They had a few beers with us a few times, but that's because my roommate, he speaks Spanish, and so it was fun in that nature. But no, I never thought to even ask my roommate to even ask them for me in that sense. I just assumed that, I don't know, it was really strange. I felt like I shouldn't be talking to just anybody unless they have some curiosity and things like that already. So I didn't want to shake up their world with this information that I saw, and then now they're on the fritz, they're worried about it, or they're paranoid now. So I felt like it had some kind of deal of responsibility with knowing this and then talking about it. So I felt like I had to choose wisely when I brought it up.
Yeah, That does make good sense. A lot of people would have felt that way. You said it was about 11 feet tall, but if you had to guess its width, what would you say?
The width? It's a good question. Definitely I want to maybe say about 4.5 feet wide.
Yeah, it's pretty wide. You've listened to the show for some time now. You've also seen quite a few of the illustrations that Chris Chin has done for the show. If you had to guess whether this was a canine type or a type 3 Dogman, what do you think? I realize you didn't get a chance to see its legs, but from what you did have a chance to see, what do you think about that?
I definitely think that's a canine type, just because of the shape of its head. It had the shape of a wolf or maybe a German Shepherd. So being that the snout was so long, definitely a canine type.
That's one big canine type. It's easy to think, since most of these sightings involve ones that are about 7 feet, maybe 8 feet tall, that they don't get any bigger than that, but they sure do. It's not very comforting to think about, but they do get a lot bigger. Did the growls that you heard in the backyard that night sound more canine in nature, or if not, what did they sound like?
It sounded like a canine, but it was like a disturbing, monstrous sound. If you think about a vicious dog growling, it sounds scary, but you can tell that it has a certain level to how aggressive it can sound. You know when things are getting dicey and getting hairy, so, it's time to prepare yourself if there's a dog going at you. But with this, it was at a level where, like it can get really loud if you wanted to. It was barely trying. And when it tried just a tiny bit, definitely a tiny bit, you can feel even a higher level of fear. But I know it can get really loud because I want to say before I saw it, well, definitely before I saw it, one of the first things that I noticed in that area, because my landlord had a bench press out on his front porch, and I would go out there and bench press like at night, because when I get off from work, that's one of the things I enjoy doing from not watching TV. And I did that quite often. At one point, it used to be pretty silent nights, at least from the time I started bench pressing out there at night. So I noticed on some nights I would hear loud roars in the distant background, like at least maybe, I want to say 3-4 blocks away, maybe 5 at most, but I could hear something giving off loud roars. It sounded almost like a howl, but like a pissed off, angry howl. And it would do it constantly. And it would do it for as long as it can, and it sounds like it takes a breath because it'd get quiet and then it'd do it again. And then it'd probably pause for maybe a couple minutes, and then it'd do it again. And so when I heard that, I thought initially what I thought the first time was probably a werewolf. I've always made that joke a lot because I thought, if it doesn't exist, at least it's funny. But it is not that funny anymore. So when that happened, I just thought, jeez, that's not a dog. I don't know how it's happening, but it's not a dog. But, alright, that's creepy. So I finished bench press. Then it continues to happen, but then it becomes a distraction because now you just keep becoming way too curious. Like, how was that then made? How was that possible? So I went inside and got my girlfriend to tell her about it. She comes downstairs and it stops. It was like you couldn't time it perfectly because it would do it for a while, then it would stop for a couple minutes. Sometimes for a long time, then it would start right back up again. So I brought her out, maybe 3-4 minutes passed, nothing happens. Not a single thing. So she goes back inside, and I finish bench pressing, but I'm keeping it air. I'm taking my time now because I'm focused on something else. Never heard it. Nothing happened. It stopped. So another night, it happened. Now, the moment I heard just a little bit, I ran right inside to go get her. So when she came back out, it was perfect because it was still happening. And then she heard it, and she was just like, Cornell, what the hell is that? Like, I was just like, I don't know, this is what I was telling you about. Like, this area is creepy, yo. There's trees everywhere, there's woods everywhere, you don't know what's out there. And now this is happening? So we looked at each other, she was like, you should probably come inside and start working out, it's not that important. So I was like, yeah, I think you're right, but do you hear that, though? Like, do you hear that? She's like, yeah, I hear it, let's go inside. So she went inside, I paused and I waited like 2 minutes, and she kept calling me, but I thought that was crazy. This happened for the second time, that's crazy. So I went inside, but I was definitely more curious, but also, feeling more precautious. This is leading up to the experience, so that was interesting.
Well, one thing's for sure, you don't scare very easily. You talked about that window with the air conditioning unit you were sleeping next to. How high was that windowsill off the ground?
I want to say it was about 10 to 11 feet off the ground because I was on the second floor.
That's pretty high. And it seemed to you like if it had wanted to, it could have reached in the window and grabbed you.
I think it sure could have. There was no way it couldn't. Because when it breathed and kept snarling, when it did it next to the window, I felt like its face was right there. So my common sense told me that if it was that tall, and I already felt as though it could be on 2 feet, it had to have arms that were long, at least to complete the body. Short arms, hey, that would be my favorite because maybe it couldn't reach in my window. But to see the fight of whatever it could have been, even if it wasn't a werewolf, I think honestly, if it wasn't a werewolf, I think that could have scared me even more. Because, like, I don't know what my brain could have thought of. At least a werewolf to some degree was an expectation for me, just because I had the fear since I was a kid and seen so many movies. So that was an expectation. I wasn't completely surprised, just surprised that it is real. But I think I would have had a good idea of what it was when I seen it versus wasn't that something completely different. And yeah, it wouldn't have been any animal that I've seen or heard of before. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, if it was about 11 feet tall, it definitely could have reached in that window and grabbed you if it wanted to, so that's not a very comforting thought. You talked about that fence that it kept running into. What was that fence made of?
It was a metal fence, pretty thin. It wasn't a huge and thick fence. It was a thin fence. So I thought it should have been torn to shreds because of what was happening to it.
Yeah, you would think so. With it being as big as it was, you think it would have ripped it apart, but I guess you never know. Were there many creeks in the area? You mentioned that there were woods in the area, or at least parks.
So there was a creek not too far away. Not too far from the kids' playground, actually, which is kind of strange. The park, it looks like a family park. It's a pretty decent size. The playground itself isn't that big, but the park itself is pretty huge. So I guess it's also a dog park. And that's about maybe, now that I think about it, about 45 blocks away. And that's always where I heard the roars coming from. So I'm guessing at night that's the area it mostly frequent. Because surrounding that park was just tall trees and brush. So if you were to walk through there, you can go hiking and, once you're in there, it's like walking through the woods. You understand that this particular neighborhood or area isn't that type of area where there's lots of woods and you can get lost, but it's enough where you can walk through there, and if it's nighttime, it can be pretty scary.
Yeah, I can appreciate the fact that the woods were there. It doesn't sound like they were all that big. It just still makes you wonder where it could have been holding up during the day or where it came from.
That is correct. During the day, it wasn't too bad. You feel safe because if anything came out of the woods, you can see it coming. But that particular park, at night, there was no lights to illuminate it. So at night, most people don't go there because you can't walk through and see where you're going. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. I walked through there once at night with a friend. I regret the fact that I've done it because when I've done that, it was after the experience. So I knew better. And it was a stupid chance on my part to, I don't like to show when I'm afraid. So there's times I'll just do it. If that's what gets things done, then I'll just do it. She wanted to walk through this because of the shortcut back to our house. She was my roommate's friend, so she stayed there pretty often. So we walked to the store and then we walked back. I was hoping that we would walk around through the neighborhood to walk back. At least I felt more safe with that. God knows what reason she decided to want to take a quick shortcut through the park. When you go through the park, once you're in the pavement or the path, it's a straight shot straight through to the opposite side, and that's where more lights are. So you know that if you walk straight through, there's nothing in front of you, because if you know the park pretty well, you're like, all right, well, I'll continue straight. I'll see light at some point. And that's how that works. And walking through there, I heard no noises. I heard like a few birds, but that was about it. But the entire time, I just thought, it can come from any direction, but at least I know I'll be able to hear it coming. So I thought, at least there's some comfort in knowing that. There's some comfort in knowing that because this way, I'm not surprised. I'm already expecting it. This was a stupid choice to make, but hey, that's with it. I'll deal with it when it happens. So we walked straight through, and then once we came out, I thought, thank God, let's get the hell in the house. I don't have to be strong anymore. I don't have to be fearless right now. At this point, there's light, and I feel way better, but I'll be a lot better once I'm inside. So I guess when I walk through the park, I just shut my emotions off. Whenever I'm afraid, but I know to be prepared, I shut my emotions off. I completely turn them off. This way they're not a distraction.
I said it before and I'll say it again. You do not scare easily. Would there have been any way you could have sat up in bed that night to take a look out the window without it hearing you? Of course, some beds are squeakier and noisier than others.
I felt like it would have made some noise because of the frame that it was sitting upon, but I wasn't completely certain. Now, if this was a chance where I'm just being nosy in the backyard and there's no reason to take that much precaution, but yet I wanted to be quiet, I felt like I would have somehow managed with that because there was no risk. But with this, since the risk was so high, the reward was equally as high just to see what it was, and that if I could have been sneaky and not been seen, that there's a reward there, just if I can tell the story more accurately. Supposing I lived through this, because at the time I wasn't sure. I was definitely not sure. But no, I didn't take any chance. There was a possibility I could have done that, but I didn't take the chance. The risk wasn't worth it. It didn't make any sense because I felt as though if it would have reached in, it would have shattered the window. It would have to, or at least pushed the AC in or pulled it out. Whatever it was, it would have to be a fast motion because this thing sounds like a predator, and I'm just assuming because anything that's going to attack something else, it's not going to take its time and casually do anything. So I knew it was going to be a really fast action. So it would have made a lot of noise, and it would have scared my girlfriend, which was what she was laying right next to me. But the thing about her is, she's completely knocked out. She's unconscious. She's sleeping. If that happens, she doesn't know what to expect, what to do, or she's not paying attention. So even if I move, because I'm completely alert, I'm aware. I've been laying here in bed dealing with this for the last 10, 15 minutes. This went on for quite a while. So I'm already prepared to move. But also, if I get up and look, I'm aware that I incited that action from it because it wasn't bothering the window at any point before that. So if I did that, I feel like that gives her a very unfair advantage because now that it's reacting to me, I have to react to it. So naturally, my instincts would be selfish and get me out of the way first before I can do anything for her. And if it reaches in, she's goner. So it wasn't just myself that I was worried about. I was more worried about her because I knew I could move if I chose to, like if I really had to move, but the fear told me not to. It wasn't smart. So I felt like I was paralyzed in a sense. And when I felt that way, it was just all mental. Your consciousness was just, it feels expanded. Your mind is trying so hard to explain all of this, to put the pieces together. You're using parts of your senses that you're not usually using at that level. So when you're doing that, you feel some paranoia that just comes with it. But when you hone your senses, you do get a mental picture of what it can be. I learned that through meditation. So when that took place, I just knew that whatever I was dealing with was far, far different from anything I ever encountered. So no, moving was an option.
Well, I'm so glad you didn't try to do that. I'm glad you waited until it was safely away before you tried to take a look out at it. Were there any strange disappearances of people in your area back then?
I know there were. I've seen missing photos of people, but not as much as I have with, like, missing dogs. So that didn't catch my attention as much, but there were a few, but I see that everywhere. So I didn't think that would be connected. Now that you asked that question, it does make me wonder, because before I never thought about it. So there could be some kind of connection to that. It was mostly kids, though. It wasn't like adults. So whenever there was any missing picture photos, it was mainly, I think about it. I did see those. I saw those a lot, but I mostly saw those in, like, the grocery stores or, like, near those kinds of shopping areas. So where I live, there was a lot of shopping areas. So I did see a lot over there. Looking back on it, it's strange that I didn't pay much mind to it.
It sure does make you wonder. You used to hear strange walking sounds on the roof of your building. How could a dogman get up on the roof in the first place?
I assume that they jump up there. I've heard a few interviews before. I've heard, listened to another channel, and the guy was telling a few stories about how they actually get on this roof. They actually, I think they can jump. I think they have abilities similar to other animals, like cats, how cats can jump pretty high for their height. I feel like with these things, they have that same ability, except for it's definitely at a higher level. These things they're strong, they're powerful, and they're not just huge, but their abilities to jump at the rate they can, I feel like it's due to the way their legs are built. And if they have powerful legs, and I guess it makes only sense for it to be able to do something like that. Their bodies are designed to hop in trees, or if this is an apex predator, it has the best capabilities ever. From jumping to speed, or whether it's the ability to take down a larger animal that's twice its size. So I think hopping on the roof was probably pretty easy for it. I never heard it get on top of the roof. I mostly heard it walking on the roof. It's more so sudden footsteps, as if you're in an apartment that has thin walls and your neighbor above you is just walking around. Just suddenly he decides to walk around. And I always thought that was pretty weird because the landlord had a construction company. So often he would work on his own house, but yeah, I thought it was weird maybe at night he decided to go up there and just check out the roof. Or, for all I know, maybe there was an actual problem, maybe a leak, and he decided to check it out. So the first time it happened, that's what I assumed. It sounded like the person had like boots on, or maybe just it was a big dude. And whenever he took steps, you can hear it in his footsteps. So I was like, where's Mark going up there? So my girlfriend thought it was funny. She's like, well, maybe he got to get some things fixed late at night. Maybe his wife, she has a leak in the bathroom. But I was like, all right, well, whatever he's doing, he needs to hurry up because, like, geez, man, it's like late at night, you're walking around on the roof. Like, getting loud, too. What's going on? So this would go on for quite a while. Like, it was casual walking around, like the person's in the kitchen cooking or something. So that would happen pretty often. Like, usually when we're watching one of our favorite TV shows that comes on at 11:30, that's when that would happen, around that time. And so it wasn't very late. It wasn't like it was past midnight. So I just thought maybe Mark chose to do it then because it's a decent time to go up there and check the roof out. I thought that was pretty stupid. But after the experience took place, yeah, I didn't think that anymore. Not a chance.
Oh, I can understand why. And from what I understand, you went up onto the roof one time to see what was going on up there. What did you find?
The roof incident was pretty funny and very, very, very embarrassing. I had DirecTV already, which is how we watched the shows we did. But I wanted to upgrade to HD, and I was extremely, extremely adamant about having HD TV. So I continued to call the guys to come out. They kept telling me that, well, the trees in your area are blocking the view, so we can't give you HD TV. I was like, well, there's got to be a way. I was like, how about I go in a room with you, and we can find a nice spot. The guy was like on the phone, he's telling me, like, it's not possible for these reasons. And he says, if it happens, you're extremely lucky. I was like, well, let's take a chance. The guy finally comes out. I took off that day because I wanted to, like, make sure this took place. And he comes back there. He's like, oh, man, I don't have a ladder for this. Like, oh, no worries. My landlord has a ladder. It's like 20, 30 feet tall. So we get that, and then we go up there. It's a long ladder. So we get to the very top, and we're on the roof, and I'm looking around. The moment I get up, he gets up there before I do. And the moment I get up there, I look around, I'm just like, holy, there's piles and piles of poop everywhere. It was like a policeman left his horse up there just to take poops everywhere before he takes it back out for a walk. It was that tall. It looks like a horse did it. It was like at least 12 to 14 inches up. That's how piled up it was. It was gross. But it was so many droppings, it was at least like 40 to 50. Like, just piles everywhere. It was so many, you couldn't take a step without having to step over one. It was covered. And the reason it was embarrassing because it was clear to what it was. There was no mistake about it. And it's on my roof. It's on my roof, and I'm up here with the DirecTV guy, and he's not saying a word about it. And I can only imagine what he's thinking. It's not like I can say, well, I walk my dog up here at night because I get a good exercise. No, there's nothing I can say to explain why this is up there. Or why I didn't clean it, for that matter, if I knew why. So I'm up there with, like, a blank face with my arms up, like, I'm just going to focus on getting DirecTV. I want my HD TV. I want it so bad. I've waited a long time. Nothing's going to stop me from having this day. I'll think about this crap later. So we go over there. We're working on the satellite, and he's trying to fix it. He says, well, all right, we found a signal. I thought he was lying just because he wanted to get down. But it turns out he actually found it, so that was pretty cool. So we go down, and he never says a word about it. Neither did I. I didn't know what would happen if he asked me, like, no, I don't know, man. Like, maybe you want to sit down for this. It's a long story. So it all started in my backyard, right? So I didn't want to take him through all that. And thank God he didn't ask me any questions. But from that day on, I think back on it, I laugh just because, like, yeah, a dog man pooped all over my roof once, and I had to show this to the DirecTV guy. So that was funny.
Yeah, I'll bet that was pretty embarrassing. Although he didn't think you did that, so I guess it's not all that big of a deal.
I hope not.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't think that. How long would you hear those noises up there on the roof?
So it'd be about 5 minutes or so. It could be longer, but it wouldn't do it consistently nonstop. It would walk around, usually right above where my bed was. I mostly heard it right there. The roof was pretty big, and considering it pooped all over it, it walked all over it. So anyone else in the house had to hear it too. So whenever we watched that TV show, that's when we would hear it. So there's moments I will pay attention and hear the sounds, and there's times I'll just ignore it because I assume it's the landlord walking around. So anywhere from like 5 to 7 minutes, I want to say, at least from the part of the roof that I can hear.
Did anyone else in the building mention hearing something up there, or was it just you?
No, just me and my girlfriend. We was the only ones who heard it. At least the only ones who ever spoke about it to anyone else. We spoke about it to each other. And my roommate, I don't know, he didn't seem to be bothered by anything at all, ever. So I really don't think he even cared.
How long before you saw it were you hearing those sounds up there?
The sounds on the roof was before I saw it. Thinking about it, that was actually pretty early. Like not too long after I moved there, maybe I want to say a month. I was there for a year, a long year after it happened, because it happened about like at least 4 to 5 months within a year of the time period I stayed there. Going home at night was not fun, ever. I think that was the most traumatizing part about it.
Oh, I bet it was traumatizing. All right, let's get into the details of this second encounter, Cornell. One night you and your girlfriend were watching TV when the two of you saw something that really shook you up. Please tell us about that.
One night, we were watching TV. We was watching a movie. So she lays back. She's like starting to fall asleep because the movie's ending. So I'm watching. I'm enjoying my time. And then out of nowhere, I hear like someone sneaking up the stairs. Like we have wooden stairs that leads up to my apartment door. So anyone with a moderate weight, you can hear them walking up easily. But when someone's sneaking, it sounds like tiny, tiny cracks in the stairs. Slow cracks, like they're really taking their time, like they're really sneaking. So the moment I noticed it, the noises were too consistent for me to think that was just one creak in the stair, or maybe that's just the wood making noise. But when it was consistent, like one step, pause, I thought, yeah, someone's been trying to be nosy or sneaky. Like, what's going on over here? Maybe one of my roommate's girlfriend's showing up, and she's coming over to see who he's messing around with. I don't know. But that's what I thought, because it sounded like it had to be a female. Just because the weight wasn't that heavy. If it was a dude and he was sneaking, I would still have some pressure more than what I heard. So I felt like she had either high heels on or some kind of shoes where her feet were like maybe flat-footed shoes. But I felt like I could hear like a tiny, like the kind of sound you would hear from a person's heel. Just a tiny, but they're walking slow, but like multiple at a time. So I didn't know what kind of shoes it was. It was kind of weird. But thinking about it now, I think that was claws, because you can hear like tapping sounds each time the foot touches down. It was almost as if, I'm not sure how to explain it. It just sounds like some kind of fancy shoes. But what it was taking its sweet time. It was sneaking up the stairs. And right as it comes towards the window, because the window was wide open and the screen was down. So I can see completely up. On the second floor, that particular floor gets pretty hot during the summertime. Well, not just the summertime, but just in general, usually if it's not winter. So it gets pretty hot up there, so we leave the window open. And I see like this thing come up to the window, like just a little bit. It pokes its head up a little bit, and then it comes over. I'm like, who is this? And it has its head shows fully up, and it's a long head, like a long snout, but like a fat head. And it walks slightly past the window, and it has its arms close to its chest, but in a folded position, as if it's pretending to be a bunny, but its back is hunched over. And from the way it was hunched over, I want to estimate that if it stood up, it could have been anywhere like 3 to 4 feet, I want to say, because it looked like it wasn't that comfortable to be that low sneaking around, but it was trying to get to the trash that left on the stairs, at the top of the stairs. So it was sneaking towards that, and it had its hands close to its chest, and it didn't look like it was kneeling down. It looked as if it was squatting down and it was walking on its toes. So as it reached towards the trash, it was slowly grabbing its skinny arms, and it was grabbing through it. And I thought, what's this? Like, at first, this was a big thing in my backyard. Now this little thing just shows up. It looks like a 13-year-old kid or something. It had, like, the body build of a 13-year-old kid who still yet to hit his growth spurt. So I'm sitting on the floor. So I reached towards the bed, and I grabbed my girlfriend's leg, and I'm telling her, look. She didn't want to move. She didn't want to move at first. She thought maybe I was just bothering her as usual. So she didn't want to take a look. And then The moment I did that, it turned its head directly at me. Because my door was open and I'm facing the front door. And the apartment's not that big, so from my room to the front door, it's like less than about 25 feet. So it looked directly at me. I paused. My arm is like still on her leg. And my face is just blank, like a deer in headlights. I'm just looking right back at me. And then I thought, screw it. I'm going to turn around and get her attention anyway. Here's my moment. And the moment I did that and she finally got to look, it was gone. So I ran to the door to go look. And then I looked out the window first before opening the door completely, just in case it was like hiding from an area where I couldn't see, just in case it wanted to take precaution as well. Like, well, maybe if he comes out, I'm going to attack first because, I don't know, maybe it could have been that kind of animal where it can be scared, but it's still an aggressive predator if it has to defend itself, especially if there's something nearby that it wants. So I looked out the window first, and I didn't see anything close by it, so I figured maybe it ran down there somewhere, or was about to leave completely. So I figured at the speed I ran to the door, I had enough time to see it at least from 10 feet away or 15 if it kept moving. So I looked out, I saw nothing. There was nothing out there. I wasn't going out there either. No, that was a definite no. Because at the speed that thing moved, I thought, alright, well, if I go down there, I don't know what the behavior was from the way it was built. There's no explanation for that. That was not a dog. That was not a raccoon. It was squatting up like a person. So at the speed it moved, that's way faster than I am. I used to lift a lot of weights back then, so I was pretty strong, but even despite how skinny it was, I didn't think that would be a smart chance for me. Because it had long nails. I could see that when it reached out to the bag. So at that speed and as long as the size of his head, it had to have a big mouth. So, no. Going down the stairs at night with something that fast and agile, not a chance. I'll close my window, though. And that's what I did. I closed my window, and I went back inside, and I locked the door. And after I left, and I thought more about it and my reaction to it, I became a little scared then, just because I took a stupid chance to run to the door like that. So I was a little more shaken up afterwards, not so much when it happened.
Yeah, I'm sure you were kicking yourself for running to the door the way you did. Was there enough light on its face for you to see it clearly when it was staring at you?
No, there wasn't enough light because the light was coming from a neighbor's side of his house, like a spotlight. So I only saw the silhouette because the light's shining from behind it. So from where I'm sitting, the TV is facing my way. So there's a bright light in my eyes. So looking outwards, I can only see like the outline of his body. Clearly enough not to see any detail or color, or even the eyes for that matter. But I can completely see the entire upper body of it. That is, because it's hunched over, I can see it. The window wasn't that high up, so I saw it perfectly. Just no color or any detail because of the light settings. I noticed they had like a bony back. I can see like the spine almost is protruding just a little bit. That I did notice.
When all this was going on, did you smell anything?
I didn't smell anything in either encounter, actually. Neither one didn't smell anything at all. Some people say, I noticed from certain videos, people say they smell like sulfur or some kind of strange rotting smell. I didn't get any of those, actually.
Sometimes people smell things, sometimes people don't, so that's not all that surprising. How long after your first encounter did this second one happen?
Maybe a couple weeks later. It was pretty soon, actually. When that happened, I just thought, why is these things happening back to back? To me, at that point, it felt like the neighborhood was that's just how the neighborhood was. That area, that's just how it is over there. So, it was common enough for anyone who lived there for a long period of time. Like, if you was there for years, I'm sure you've heard and seen plenty of things that normally you wouldn't see anywhere else. So, for me, I was still getting used to things, and that was one of the things I had to get used to.
Seeing that first Dogman is one thing, but having that second encounter, weren't you ready to have a Century 21 moment, or were you convinced that you wanted to stick it out?
I wanted to leave. There was no doubt about it, but I knew that wasn't possible. Because the only way I could have went to even move out was to go back with my parents, and I waited all my life to move from there. So there was no way I was going to go back. Despite how bad I wanted to, the action behind it, I wasn't going to take it. I thought about it. It gave me comfort to think about the action that I could, but I would never take a chance with it. So I figured at some point I was able enough money to move out or a better opportunity would come, and then I'll take it the moment it shows up. And that's what I did when it happened. My girlfriend's parents wanted us to move closer to the city because she was pregnant, so she moved closer. And they got us a place down in the city, which was good. And the moment that happened, I was like, oh man, here's my chance. I can't wait. I'm done with this crap. So when that chance came, I took it. But before then, I just had to tough it out. There was nothing I can do because, I don't know, just the way life is, I suppose. If you want to make it through, you got to stick it through. You got to do what you got to do, despite what's standing in front of you. Those are just fears. So I didn't want to backtrack in order to get to where I'm at now.
Those had to be pretty crazy times for you having all that going on.
Yeah, it was interesting. It got more scary for me when it snowed, and it was like a blizzard. So I didn't see anything, but the thing was is that all the trees was bare. There was no trees, there was no leaves, nothing to disguise anything. And the street lights illuminated everything. So if I would have had an encounter then, I think it would have been super surreal because of the fact that I had so much clarity and visibility of it. But the only problem is no one ever goes out at night there. And thinking back on it, that's probably why. That's probably exactly why they don't go out at night, because they know better. So for me, I worked late, so I had no choice. So whenever I walked home, I was usually the only person on the street. And the snow was fresh. It looked like no one ever walked through it. So two got home at a decent time, I figured, and they stayed inside like they had to go out to work the next morning. So certain days, it was just obvious. It was just me out there. I knew it. And I had to walk a couple blocks because of the fact that the buses will only go by so far when it snowed, and you had to walk at least 12 blocks, and then to the house, which is around in near more of the area that I would call wooded, but then the trees were bare. If anything showed up, there was no way I could outrun it or even try to defend myself. The snow it held me back so much just to walk through it to go home at a decent pace. It was a workout to do that. So for me to run, there was no chance. Not even a little bit. So if I saw it, I was done for. And I'm pretty sure it would have saw me too. Because I was the only thing out there moving.
Well, thank goodness nothing like that ever happened. Did you ever think about contacting the police to let them know about what you had seen on either occasion?
Yes and no. I think no more so because of the reason why I've been chosen to speak to anyone sooner than my girlfriend and my dad. Yes, because I wanted to know if they knew more. That was a question I had. And if that's the case, like, what is it? What do you call it? Like, how do you deal with this? Should I be calling you guys more often when I'm experiencing it so you can try to catch it or kill it or however that works? But I had plenty of questions for what I should say, but never enough desire to actually call them. Never enough, because I just felt like they're not going to take it serious enough. I'm calling with questions, not just a report. So I don't want to feel like what I experienced doesn't mean nothing because someone else looks at it that way. So I figured there was value in knowing that it's true without naysayers telling me otherwise.
Well, for all the reasons you just mentioned and more, I can understand why you didn't let them know about what had happened and what you had seen. All right, Cornell, let's talk about the after effects. You're really shaken by those encounters, but how hard of a time did you have dealing with them after they were over?
When it was over, I was just more afraid of coming home at night. That was mostly it. I did have nightmares. Those I still have. The fear of coming home at night, I still have. Those things never went away. I think mainly because you never know when it's gonna happen again or how it may happen again. I think that's how the nightmares are created. They find something to root to, and then that you have too much curiosity and it's unfulfilled and unanswered, you go down a rabbit hole consistently. So every once in a while the dreams start or they'll happen. And in the mornings when I wake up, I forget what they are. But just a few days ago, I was meditating, and then one of the thoughts came up about a particular memory, and I realized that it wasn't an actual memory, it was more so a dream. And turns out it was a reoccurring dream. So I was able to focus on that. And I learned that in this dream, what happens is I'm suddenly back at that apartment again. And things are starting to happen, but each time I wake up there again, how it starts is always a different experience. It's never the same as the first one. Actually, it's never like the first one. In some occasions, there's multiple of these things, and they're trying to get into the house, or they are inside, and we have to run around. But when this experience happens, I'm not just in the apartment itself. I actually have access to the rest of the house, which in real life I never did. But for whatever reason, it's not just terrorizing me, but everyone within the house. They usually get us every time. And the best way out is, they get you. That's the best way out. Each time you wake up, each time I wake up in that dream, my only desire is to find my way out. It's really weird. It's like a vivid dream or a lucid dream. You once you're in there, you know exactly what to do. You know exactly what's going on. That same feeling of paranoia and fear is there, and you know what it is before you even see it. Sometimes you never see it. You just know it's after you. And as you run from different room to room, you know it's right behind you because you can hear it like tearing through the door. So your whole goal is to find a way where you can wake up or get out and survive, and you never do. So that one's really bad. There's another one when this was one of the fears I had when I first encountered the thing. It happened at 6 a.m. and then shortly later, since it lasted for so long, it was near time for my girlfriend to get up to go to school. So thinking back on it, then that she didn't have to wake up to that and it was gone, I still have the fear of her leaving out where she gets to the bus stop and these things show up. It could be multiple, or maybe for whatever reason I'll walk with her and then we get followed. So that happens way more than the house version. So there's always dreams of me trying to get away from them more so than anything else.
I can't explain it, but it's not just you. A lot of eyewitnesses tell me about how they have these super realistic dreams. It's almost like you just can't get out of them, and they replay over and over again. I don't know what's behind that, but like I said, it's not just you. Did you ever consider seeking professional help to deal with all this?
No, actually I didn't. I did choose meditation though. That's one of my favorite therapies as far as dealing with a lot of things. So I found solace in that, and it doesn't bother me anymore as far as the fear behind it. I just take better precaution at night. That's mostly what that is. And not a night goes by where I don't think about it. But it doesn't bother me to the extent where I can't enjoy the night as I prefer to. So that being said, I think I deal with it pretty well. The nightmares come and go, but I know they're not real. I know that they're not a beacon to call upon another encounter. I know that. In that case, it would have been happened. But I think I deal with it pretty well. Compared to the people that I hear on the show, I think I deal with it far better. Maybe because I have a fascination with these things too as well. So I feel like my experience is like a prized possession. The fear part, I would prefer to do without, but it comes with the play.
Yeah, it does sound like you're handling those very well, which I hope you don't relapse. You sound like you're really well adjusted and you have a positive outlook on life, so I guess I shouldn't be all that surprised that you are doing so well. On a scale of 1 to 10, how traumatized were you by those two encounters?
The first one, scale 1 to 10, definitely far beyond 10. Maybe like 1,000, because that level of fear when I laid there in bed and I didn't want to move, there was nothing like it. It didn't feel like death. It just felt like torment to your soul. And you have no control over it. Even if you wanted to have a decision or an idea to stop this, to prevent it, or to have some kind of say-so, to have some kind of self-power, you feel like you completely lose that. You know 100% that you have no chance, no shot. You couldn't make that go away. I can't yell out the window and say go away. Like, I had no power whatsoever. There was 100% chance I would lose. This thing exudes perfection in a sense. And perfection as far as what life has to offer as a predator. I think you don't really get any much crazier than that. It's like, I don't think a shark would want to mess with one of these things. So, it's pretty interesting. Really, a tiger for that matter. I think these things feared nothing. Definitely feared nothing. Because I know that the Wolverine can take down a moose, or they hardly fear bears. And bears are far bigger than a Wolverine is. So for something to be that aggressive where it doesn't scare easy, imagine something this size that has no comparison. So I wouldn't be surprised if it has a god complex in the animal kingdom.
Well, if it's that big, I guess it kind of has a right to. 11 feet, that's a big one. What kind of food sources were available in that area for something like that to live on?
I think mostly deers. Maybe trash. I mean, if you throw some good food out, people barbecue in the area, so maybe that. But I think more so deers. There was a lot of deers in the area. I've always wondered, like, if there's there's a lot of deer in your area, what predators might they have? So there was no sightings of cougars or things like that, but deer, I'm sure wherever they go, something's keeping an eye on them, just because that's how life works. No matter how much we populate an area and we think it's safe, because, a few cute deers walk past in a pack, like a little family, like, oh, it's a nice neighborhood, that's cute. But I guess on the more darker side, something is probably tracking those deers. So who knows what they're leading towards you in your direction, just because they're there because they're grazing, or maybe because they like that part area because there's creeks and there's a water source. So it's pretty comfortable for their living, their lifestyle. So if it's comfortable for them, it's probably comfortable for other things that eat deer. So just because we never see deer get eaten, we mostly see them on the side of roads when cars hit them, but I think there's a definite chance that deer are still hunted by other things. Otherwise, they would be much more calm and relaxed whenever they see people or see anything. They wouldn't run off. They still have that fight-or-flight instinct. I think they use it pretty well for good reasons.
Yeah, if you had that healthy of a deer population, what more could it ask for? It's got the water from the creek. It's got all those deer to eat. I can understand why you would be around then. Your dad didn't believe you when you first told him about your encounter, but later on he told you about an experience he had himself. Please tell us about his experience.
His experience was funny. It was funny to me because at the time when I heard about it, I've heard plenty of Dogman shows. I found other shows. I found far much more information once I found the Dogman Encounters. So when I heard his story, it was expected. The conditions which he explained, the circumstances, it made sense. It was way too common to me at that time. But when he said it, it was like something new. So I thought that was funny. He said that he was on a train ride to go see someone, a friend of his, and he had stopped in New Orleans for a bit. So when he did that, at night, he said that everyone stayed inside and no one wanted to go. It was a certain part of New Orleans. I'm not sure what part it was exactly. I don't remember. But he said it was like a small town he had stopped in. But at night, no one went outside. Like it was people from the neighborhoods or the town itself. If you were in an establishment like a restaurant, they will make sure that you don't go outside. Or a bar, you're not allowed to go outside. You can go out if you choose to. That's your own risk. But you're warned pretty heavily by multiple people. So clearly you know better. You know better than to take a chance anyways if most people saying don't do it. But they're not giving you a reason. That does raise a lot of mysterious curiosity in a person. So he decided to ask around. He saw this guy, he had a lot of tattoos and whatnot, and the guy looked like he could definitely handle himself if he wanted to. So it definitely wasn't like he was afraid because the neighborhood was bad at night. There was people out there roughing up other people. There wasn't things like that. Not at all. So what happened was he said, he asked the guy, like, why wouldn't you go outside? The guy said he doesn't want to talk about it. And he was really shook up about it as well. He said that, I'll tell you in the morning. So my dad sat back. He didn't think much of it. Well, he thought much of it, but he didn't think it was a wise idea for himself to go out, but he was still curious. So he asked someone else, got the same response. So as the night goes by, he hears a little girl making a joke about it. And she says that, no one's allowed outside because of the Lupo Grupo is out there. And the moment he says that word, I knew. I was like, see? I knew these things are real. It's not just me. So because of that, you're not allowed to go outside. And the little girl, she wasn't from there, but she was visiting, and she heard someone say that. So she thought it was a joke. But whenever she kept joking about it, people were like just freaking out. People from that town were just really, really shook up about it. So never heard anything else like that. Didn't see anything. But he said there was a police officer in there too, and he had a gun. But the guy would not go out. He's like, so he asked him as well. He says it's just not safe here, at night. So everyone knows it's not safe. You just don't go out there at night. He said the entire town pretty much shuts down at a certain time. Like no one does anything. Wherever you are, you stay there for the night to the morning. So I thought that was a little scary, a little fun. So I kind of thought, but I think fun just because of the fact that hopefully you're not just by yourself and you're with other people. Like if you're at a restaurant and everyone has to stay inside, I feel like you should be pretty safe. I want to assume that if there's that many people in there. I don't think that something like that's going to just attack the restaurant. Hopefully not, but at least you're not alone. So you can, I guess, go through the experience knowing that you're not the only one. There's some comfort in that. But that's all he experienced from it, and he just thought that was strange, and he thought back on my experience. So when we spoke about it, He definitely realized then. Definitely realized. So he found out what a Lufa Grupo was, and it was exactly what I was telling him. So that was pretty cool. It was a good experience to hear him admit to it.
That had to be awfully creepy being in a place like that where they warn you not to go outside at night. I can't even imagine that. If you could be at a safe distance, do you have any desire to see another Dogman?
Yes and no. At a very good distance, and if maybe there's some things between me and it within that distance, then yes. If it was snooping around somewhere, maybe a few streets away, and it wasn't facing in my direction or crossing into my direction, yeah, sure, I would love to catch a glimpse of that. Definitely. But hopefully it continues to keep minding its own business, but it will only confirm that leaving out late at night is not safe. Leaving out early in the morning is not safe. That's pretty much all that will confirm for me. So to want to see that, it's pretty a silly thing to want to do because of the fact that it's only going to confirm the fact that you have a predator out there that is untamed and doesn't follow any rules. You can't go out and arrest it. It doesn't work that way. So your chances are totally left up to it. Whatever it chooses to want to do or don't do, that's his choice. Your choices don't really matter at that point. Unless you're choosing to stay inside or continue driving or get inside. But other than that, yeah, you don't have many options.
That is a good point. In almost every encounter, the Dogman decides whether the eyewitness lives or dies. That's something not to lose sight of. How concerned are you about proving they exist?
Very concerned. Very concerned. Very concerned because people do a lot of hiking. They take jogging trails. And I went jogging with a friend of mine a few days before my birthday, just in April. And we was jogging to the zoo. We took Rock Creek Park. We jogged up. So whenever I'm in the area where there's a lot of nature, there's a creek and there's basically a water supply, a nice hiding area there, I see deers. Whenever I see that, when I count all three of those, my thought is there's probably one of these things not too far from there, or in that area, or frequents that area. So I'm usually aware and cautious. So when we took that jog we took, I couldn't help but think about that. If people do this at night, people jog out here at night, that's just weird. It doesn't make any sense. I've always thought that that's not a good thing to do because of the fact that we don't know everything about this planet. And there's things that go bump in the night that we can't explain. And the reasons why they don't get explained is because there are not many witnesses. And the ones who do exist, everyone must say that they're crazy or maybe they were doing something that they shouldn't have been doing or they saw what they wanted to see. No one wants to see that. I'm just going to say that right now. Nobody wants to wake up at 6 in the morning and see what I saw or hear what I heard. You don't want to do that. It would never cross your mind. And then if it did, there's no way you're going to accurately put that into reality and manifest it at the instant of that. It just doesn't make sense. You don't want to see that and you don't manifest it that fast. It doesn't work that way. No matter how much you believe in it. So if it happened, it happened. For the word to be out there, it's good for many reasons. Because a lot of people out there are probably still dealing with this and they have yet to come across the show. Their time hasn't come yet where that information has reached them. For all I know, this could be the very first one. I think for them that it's really important to understand that when dealing with this, there's not really much you can do but keep a calm mind. You don't want to freak out. You definitely want to keep a calm mind as much as possible. I mean, that much you can do. But I think if you freak out and you act erratic, you can accidentally cause something to happen which probably wouldn't have in any other case. And if you live in an area where you know these things exist, I suggest you move out of that area. Unfortunately, I think you should move out or maybe get a couple of dogs. The dogs may not be able to protect you that well, but at least you know when it's coming and you're not alone if it does anything at all. So there's not much you can really say about it, but just be careful.
Yeah, that's about all you can do. You think they use infrasound to their advantage. Please tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. The reason why I say that is because I know that certain animals do that, and it only affects animals that are inferior to them. So I know that tigers can make a noise that other tigers can hear over 2 miles away. So if they can do that and they can hear it, then sound has an effect whether you can hear it or not. So I feel like infrasound is something that they use because they have that capability. It could be because of the amount of noise they can make, but when they slightly try, I think it gives off a frequency which causes the same effect as if it did growl. So if they do it at a very low pitch, it can affect you, and which is how I had a heads up in a sense. I think my body's pretty sensitive to that, sensitive to things that if it shouldn't be there, I become alert to it. It's like I can sense it before it happens. So I'm aware that I can do that. So when that happened, that was only an explanation for me. But also, a hint I got to put that clue together was a video game, and they had werewolves in it. It was an effect that the thing could do where it will roar, and anything that's not as strong as it is, it will become paralyzed in fear. And I thought that was an interesting touch to that game. This game came out like last 2 years. After my experience and playing that game, I thought to myself, like, I wonder if there's any connection between the two. So I Googled what infrasound is, and then I learned a little more about it. And it actually does cause fear. I think it's at the resonance frequency of the eye. So if you hear that sound, it can distort your vision, but I didn't see it immediately when it was growling. So when it was walking away, and it made no sound. So my vision wasn't distorted. But for whatever reason, that sound causes paranoia and fear. It puts you in a fight or flight mentality. So yeah, I definitely think it does it on purpose. It definitely does. It's like a charm effect it uses when it wants to eat right away. Like, all right, well, I want this catch to be pretty easy. And that's something it uses. It probably uses it on deers mostly. But a human, it probably would work. If it's a younger, like a child maybe, definitely. For an adult, probably. It depends on the adult's willpower. So that's something you can overpower. But if you're like a child, there's probably not a chance. You're not going to do that. You're still new to the world. You haven't been through enough scary experiences yet to push yourself through, like, see yourself through this before it even happens. So as an adult, you can probably do that. Depends on the kind of person you are. So I definitely think it uses infrasound. Definitely.
When you consider their size, claws, teeth, and intelligence, it's not like they need another weapon to use against you. It's almost unfair, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was true and they did have the ability to use it to their advantage. Scary thought.
Yeah, definitely. With that many abilities, it makes you wonder how many choices it has to take something down. And being that that's the case, that means this thing can make decisions. That means it can think. It can most likely anticipate in that case. So most animals don't have to do that. They rely on instinct. They live within the moment. If this thing is able to anticipate, that means it knows today from tomorrow, not just today and yesterday. So that can make you wonder. Because some people have heard encounters where a guy said one followed him home, and he drove away. So that's the decision to actually follow. And to wait outside your house for you to get a glimpse of it, I feel like it's almost taunting you. It wants you to know its presence, but without ever actually having to get your attention. It's like a confirmation, like, okay, good, you know I'm bad. Don't mess with me. Because I can do many things and you know it just like I do. But I feel like almost every single one has a sick personality to it, to an extent. Some are more aggressive and curious to do things that it would probably shake a lot of people up. And some just kind of went on their own business. Maybe they're more focused on eating some deer because that's what they like to eat. But some just have a good time messing with humans.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme nor reason to their actions, but I'm sure to them it makes good sense. Well, Cornell, it's about time to get out of here, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Nope, there's no comments, actually.
That's all right. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show tonight to tell us about those experiences and everything else you shared with us. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.